Welcome back to FRK 321. Today we're going to look at lecture 2 of foreign exchange transactions. We will only do a class example, so therefore I suggest that you get out your handouts, keep your class example number 2 nearby, and you can refer to that while we're doing the question. Let's read the question. On the 31st of August 20.0, Raider Limited, a South African company with a 31 December year-end, borrowed 10,000 euros from a European bank. Interest on this loan is payable in euros annually in arrears at 12% per annum. On the 31st of August 20.1, 4,000 euros of the capital is repayable, and on 31 August 20.2, the rest of the capital is repayable also in euros. The following exchange rates are applicable. We give you the exchange rates. At this stage, I would really suggest that you go and draw up a timeline and utilize that timeline to be able to answer your question. You will see you can read most of your information from the timeline. Prepare the relevant journals for year ended 31 December 20.0 and 20.1 that you're required. So let us have a look at the timeline. There I've drawn up a timeline for you. As you can see, we start off with the 31st of August 20.0, and I put the rate there, the spot rate at that date. And then the same we have here with our year end and the spot rate at year end. And then just to round it off, there you have your average for the period, because that we will need. And we continue with a payment date, the spot rate at payment date, the average for that period rather, and as we continue like that. Now that you have drawn up your timeline, it is time to calculate and do the journals. So we have our transaction date 31 August 20.0, and on that date we received 10,000 euros from an European bank. We multiply that by the exchange rate on that date, which is the 10 rand 10, and the answer will then be 101,000 rands, and that will be our initial journal. So let us put through that journal, if I can find the mouse. There you are. Debit the bank 101,000 and credit loan account 101,000. Now we continue. What also happens is now you've got a year end. There's no other transactions in between, so we have a year end there, and on that year end you now have to restate the creditor, because the creditor is a monetary item, and you'll have to restate the creditor at the spot rate at that specific year end. So here, there you have the spot rate. So now you have to do, you can either go and calculate the full amount, so you say 10,000 euros times the 10 rand 32, and you get 103,200 rand, and that is the rate that's the amount at which the creditor will have to be stated. But to calculate the adjustment, because we already have our first journal, to calculate the adjustment, we can just take the difference between the two exchange rates, that difference there. So we say 1032 minus 1010, and that difference is 22 cents. Now if you times that difference by 10,000 euros, you will then have to calculate an amount of 2,200 rands, and that will be your adjustment against the creditor at the year end. And there's your journal. Debit the foreign exchange loss and credit the loan at year end 2,200 rand. The reason it is a loss because the loan increased from 101,000 to 103,200 rands, and to achieve that increase in the loan, we have a foreign exchange loss We now need to calculate the interest payable for the 4 months from 31 August until the end of December. So it will be for that period. So therefore we'll have to go and do the calculation. Now we know that it is 10,000 euros times 12%, because that is your interest rate. So your interest for a year will be 1,200. But as this is only for 4 months, we will multiply it by 4 over 12, and our interest is 400 for that period. Now that is the euro value. So what is the rand value? That will be the 400 euros times which rate? That is the jackpot question. And because it's interest, because interest accrues over the period on a daily basis, we're actually supposed to use the daily conversion rate. Since that will be very cumbersome and impossible to do, we will use an average rate, which is given to you as 10 rands 21, and your calculation there is 4,000 rand and 84. 4,084 rands. That will now be our journal entry for this period. So let's just put through that journal entry. Let's just clear the calculations. And we will say there, interest accrued, and the amount will be 4,084, and that we will take to the interest accrued account. So that will be interest paid, and the amount is 4,084. Now we have provided for the interest payable for that period at the average rate. But the last thing we have to do also on 31 December 20.0 is that this interest accrued account that we have here is also like a creditor, because it shows us just the interest that accrued over the period. It has not been paid yet. So therefore this interest is an outstanding amount, and it represents a monetary item, and for that reason we have to also translate it at the year-end rate. So for that reason we'll have to go and look at the two rates there. The year-end rate is the 1032, which we have there, and it was done on the average rate. So what we will do is we will now, on 31 December 20.12, on that date, 31 December, we will take the 1032, we will deduct the 1021, and that will give us a difference of 11 cents. Now that is now your adjustment. So you will take your your 400 euros, which was your interest, times that by the 11 cents, and your adjustment will be 44 rands. So you're now going to adjust the interest accrued by 44 rands. Now what does that represent? That represents a foreign exchange loss, and that is a credit. Now how can we test that? 8214. What is our new rate? Our new rate at which this is stated is at 1032. Now 1032 times 400 euros, which was the interest, will give us that rand value. So therefore we actually can see that we are doing the correct calculations there. The debit to that entry would be interest accrued, and we now adjusted the interest accrued to 44 rand, and that is the interest that we need to make for that journal. So let's have a quick look at the journal itself, and there you have the interest paid journal. Debit the interest paid 4,084, and credit the interest accrued 4,084, And finally, your adjustment to your accrued interest account, debit foreign exchange loss with 44 rands and credit accrued interest with 44 rands. We have now successfully completed the journals for the 31st of December 20.2 financial year, and the next step is to do the journals relating to the repayment of the 4,000 euros on the 31st of August 20.1. I've drawn up that table there, and it shows the 10,000 euros that we had outstanding on the 31st of December. That 10,000 euros was outstanding at that date. But now I've split it into two. The 4,000, which will be repayable at the 31st of August, as well as the 6,000, which will only be repayable the 31st of August 20.2. So for this first period, all that we are interested in is the 4,000, which will be repaid on the 31st of August 20.1. And now we have to calculate the adjustment on that 4,000 and then do the repayment. Now there's two ways you can do it. You can either first do the adjustment to take that 4,000 to the spot rate at 31st of August, or you can do a combination journal. Now when you do a combination journal, you can say the 4,000 was outstanding at 10 rands 32, which is this right here, equals 41,280. So that was a creditor at the 31st of December 20.0. And now must be repaid 4,000 times 1036, which is 41,440. So you can do the calculation in that way, or well, you get an answer there of 160, which is then the adjustment against the foreign exchange loss. Or you can just do the calculation by saying 4,000 times 1036 minus, sorry about that one, minus 1032, and that will also give you 160, which is then the loss on this adjustment. So you can, as I said there, you can do this calculation on one of these two ways that we've done there. Let us look at the journal. So there's the journal. You debit the foreign exchange loss, which you've just calculated, and it goes straight to profit and loss. You adjust the loan as it was stated at the previous year end, only the 4,000 portion at 1032, and then out of the bank you will pay the 4,000 times 1036, the 41,440, and that part of the capital has now been repaid. The next step now is to calculate the interest that will be accrued for this 8 months, the current 8 months from 31 December 20.0 till 31 August 20.1, as well as the interest that will have to be paid on 31 August 20.1. So you remember, we accrued interest from there to there, and now we have to accrue further from that point onwards, and that will give us now the amount of interest that will be repaid for at the end of 31 August 20.1. So first we have to calculate the interest for this period, and as we did previously, let us have a look at the calculation itself. It is still 10,000 euros was outstanding for that period, times 12%, and that will give us 1,200 euros. Now that 1,200 euros times 8 over 12, it will give us only this period, interest for that period to be paid, and our answer here is then 800. Now that 800 is the interest that accrued evenly over the period, and as we said, because it is interest, we must make use of the average rate, which will be this one here. So that will be 1034, and we will use our 1034 calculation, and the interest that we calculate is then 8272. That is now the interest that will accrue for this period. So there we will say 31 August 20.1 accrued interest 8272, and here we will have 31 August 20.1, and we will have interest paid 8272, and that is now the amount that we've calculated the interest paid to be. So if we add those together, we get a 0, a 0, a 4, a 2, and a 1. So our calculated interest accrued is the 12,400. But remember again, as we said previously, the amount that we have to pay, we first have to restate that to the closing rate at 31 August, because this is a monetary item. So the best will be to restate it, and at what amount will it be restated? That interest payable there is the 400 from the first 4 months, and the 800 from the current 8 months. So the full interest repayable is 1200, and it is repayable on today's date at 10 Rand 36. So the amount repayable is 12,432. So now you can do your calculation. The amount of interest repayable is now 12,432, and the difference between that and what we stated is the 32 rands. So our journal will now be credit the Forex loss with 32, giving us 12,432, and of course debiting this account 31 August 20.1 with accrued interest of 32. So now we've accounted for the exchange rate adjustment as well, and that is the amount which will now be repaid, and we will debit this account. I'm not going to do the journal, it's in your journals, and you will credit the bank because that is then the payment of that account. So let's have a look at our journals. Our first journal, the interest paid versus interest accrued as we've calculated. So we now do the journal, and then there's the foreign exchange loss adjustment against the accrued interest to restate it at the spot rate of the day that it will be paid, and then we have the payment of that accrued interest and credit the bank account with that amount. We have now completed the journal entry for the repayment of the loan of 4,000 euros at 31 August 20.1, as well as the interest payment that was due on 31 August 20.1. We will now have to continue with the year-end balances and translate that to the closing rates. So let's have a look at that. Remember, as we said previously, the 4,000 has now been paid. So all that is remaining at the year end, 31 December 20.12, is the 6,000 euros that's still outstanding and payable. So therefore, the other point is that 6,000 euros was not restated when we paid the 4,000. It is still standing in the books at the translation rate of 10 Rand 32. And now at year end, we must now go and translate it at 10 Rand 19. As you can see, the difference there will be our foreign exchange adjustment. So let us do the calculation. The loan, there's 1032 was the rate at 3112 20.0, and the new rate is now 1019 on 31/12/20.1. So the difference there is 32 minus 19, that is a 13-cent difference, times that by the 6,000 euros still outstanding, and our adjustment is 780 rands. Now that adjustment, please remember, is a profit. And the reason it being a profit, the rate went down from 10.32 to 10.19. So in euro terms, we are now owing them less. And for that reason, that is a profit. So there you will now say the Forex profit of 780. Now that will then be adjusted loan at year end, and that is our 780 adjustment. Now as you can see there, it's a credit, so that is a profit. So there, we have now adjusted the balance of this account. Now let us just make sure, let's do a calculation. What will the new balance be? New balance 31/12/20.1. If you take this amount, you deduct these two, and we then get to 103,200 minus 41,280 minus 780. We get to 61140. That will be the new balance of this account. And how can we test that? The 6,000 must be stated at the new rate of 10 Rand 19 equals 6,000 times 10.19, and your answer is 61140. So we know that our calculations have been done correctly. The next step that we have to do is the calculation of the interest. And remember, the interest now goes from accrues from the 1st of September until the end of the year again. And now we must remember the outstanding amount is only this 6,000. Times that by the 12% and times that by 4/12, and we will be able to calculate the euro amount that is outstanding in terms of the interest for that period. So let us go and do that interest calculation very quickly. 6,000 times 12% equals 6,000 times 0.12, 720. 720 times 4/12 equals 240. Now that 240 is euros outstanding, and so therefore we must look at the average rate for the period to calculate the interest, and 10,275 times 240 equals 2466, and that is the interest that have been accrued for that period. And remember, the last journal will now just be to adjust the interest accrual. So let's just put through that 31/12/20.1 accrued interest 2466. The other portion of that journal will be interest paid 2466, and all that remains for you is to do the last journal where the accrued interest is now adjusted to the year-end balance. I do not have space there, but you can just look at the journals. Let's finalize the journals. There is the adjustment of the loan from 1032 to 1019, and that gives us a foreign exchange profit. And then the interest paid, as we just see, the calculation of 2,466, debit interest paid, credit accrued interest, and then the final adjustment, which you can just check on yourselves, is the accrued interest against the foreign exchange profit in this case, because that rate went down again. Right, thank you, nice studying.